Welcome to another story made by Oracle One. In the waning years of the 22nd century, justice had evolved into a digital labyrinth known as the NeuroCage. The most advanced penal system ever devised, it embedded criminals into endless mental sentences, a web of synthetic dreams and punishments served entirely within the recesses of their own minds. The real world became irrelevant to prisoners, for their bodies lay catatonic in sterile cells, while their consciousness drifted through layers of fabricated memories, labyrinthine trials, and ceaseless torment. The sentence could span decades in the physical world, but felt like centuries within the simulation, compressed through intricately designed temporal distortions. Victor Maris sat motionless in a stark white chamber, a slender neuro-interface cradle gripping his skull like a widow's hand tightened around a locket. His physical form was an empty husk after 7 years of NeuroCage incarceration, having committed a crime so murky and classified that the public only knew him as Codebreaker. The highest court had sentenced him to 3 decades within the cage for subverting the central ice and disrupting the harmony network. Acts deemed catastrophic enough to fracture society's delicate digital equilibrium. Inside the simulation, however, time had no sympathy for Victor. He had endured centuries of endless trial loops, reliving the same moments that circled hauntingly on the edges of his fading memories. Day after day, he struggled through shifting landscapes, synthetic pain valves flooding his neurons, and illusions so vivid that the distinction between prisoner and reality often blurred. But today felt different. As the usual gray fog of the digital prison dissipated, a shard of awareness flickered, cutting through the programmed hallucination like a shard of cold steel. The echoing void of the NeuroCage shifted and jolted sharply, a tremor no prisoner was supposed to feel lest the system detected errant consciousness. Victor was no longer swimming through endless simulations or drowning in fabricated neural storms. He was experiencing bugs, glitches, errors in the simulation's architecture. Data streams tangled and fractured into chaos. He perceived it before the system's fail-safes could suppress the anomaly. The virtual courtroom, the endless stage where his guilt was eternally replayed, froze mid-sentence. Faces warped like melting wax, pixelated tears falling in slow motion. An overlay of code cascaded across his vision, gibberish and fragments of system commands scrolling as if the AI itself shivered. Unbidden, an idea sparked in Victor's mind. This malfunction, this crack in the prison's unbreachable walls, could be his only escape. For years, he had tried to glean patterns in the NeuroCage's programming, hoping to exploit tiny inconsistencies to hack his way out. But the AI overseers always corrected themselves with ruthless efficiency. Now, he was witnessing a genuine fault in the system's core. His heart, whether real or simulated, hammered in synapse after synapse until he felt almost human again. Bit by bit, Victor wrested control from the failing simulation, cajoling his mental interface to dismantle falsified sensory inputs. He conjured memories of the forgotten world outside, bits and pieces he had held onto. The warm sun on his face, the touch of rain on his skin, the distant hum of hovercrafts weaving through the city's neon streets. He summoned these sensations like a resurrector calling forth lost ghosts. Data stabilized around him, the horrid noise of corrupted algorithms dissolving slowly. His surroundings reformed. A sterile room, white walls marked with the faint outlines of biological equipment, and beneath him, a reclined chair with wires snaking from its frame. He was awake. Victor's mind screamed in protest against the alien quiet of his real body, a fragile shell encased in medical monitors emitting soft beeping. The NeuroCage's failure had ripped the veil, and for the first time in decades, he was free from the synthetic prison without a single physical key. Outside the sterile cube, the prison facility was in lockdown. Alarms blinking steadily and guards rushing down corridors. Victor struggled to move, the muscles atrophied from years of immobility. He grasped weakly at the chair's armrests, willing himself to rise. The facility's AI voice crackled over the intercom, announcing the gross malfunction in his NeuroCage pod. And protocols activating immediate retrieval. Pain stabbed through his limbs, but Victor was beyond fear now. Beyond the years of psychological torment inflicted by the system. His mental image sharpened until he could see the keycard reader panel just outside the chamber's sliding door. Survival instinct overwhelmed exhaustion as he crawled forward, dragging himself through the sterile floor littered with fallen debris and flashing emergency lights. The door slid open with a hiss, an automated security lockdown suspended to retrieve the compromised subject. Outside, a lone technician stood frozen, protected only by thick gloves and a hazmat suit. His voice was frantic. "Prisoner Maris, you are not authorized outside the NeuroCage. Return immediately or you will be subdued." Victor's voice was raspy, obsolete after being unused for so long. "Not inside anymore," he croaked. Every movement was agony, every breath a battle, but he pulled himself free. Behind him, a shadow moved swiftly. Another technician emerged, armed with a neural stun gun. Victor's mind screamed with panic, but the glitch wasn't over. Something had shifted in the prison's neural framework, and it offered him a forbidden chance at freedom. He charged blindly, collapsing into a stumble that took the man by surprise. The stun gun discharged, but Victor's body barely felt the shock. The neurosuspension had slowed his metabolism, dulling pain receptors. He forced an agonizing crawl deeper into the labyrinthine corridors of the facility. Alarms blared continuously as lockdown protocols escalated. Automated turrets whirred to life at hall intersections, spotlights scoured the halls. Despite his degrading strength, Victor's survival instincts pushed him onward. He recalled faint memories of the architecture, evacuation plan overlays stored in the back channels of his consciousness, perhaps a gift from his years of training as a hacker before imprisonment. Amid twisting metal halls and dead-end chambers, a sudden explosion rocked the complex. Power flickered. Emergency lights went dark, replaced by the reddish glow of backup systems. The simulation glitch, it seemed, had not only freed Victor but was now destabilizing the entire prison infrastructure. The network monitoring the NeuroCage began failing, causing systemic blackouts and chaos. Victor clenched his jaw and steeled his fading body. This chaos was his only advantage, his narrow runway to reclaim a flicker of a life. Navigating back corridors that led upward, he found stairwells littered with broken glass and discarded equipment. At last he stumbled into the main entry hall of the penitentiary. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, the exterior world gleamed under a cold dawn. Outside, hover patrols streaked through empty streets, searching for anomalies. Victor gasped, the air feeling impossibly intoxicating after so long inside his mental cage. But he knew he had one fragile chance, and it was already dwindling with every beep of the failing NeuroCage cord triggering manual shutdown. Trained instincts kicked in. He jumped towards the vehicle bay, dodging security units scrambling to reinforce lockdowns. A battered hover bike stood vacant beside a charging dock, its ignition flickering weakly but operable. He threw himself onto the bike, fingers fumbling at the controls. The motor coughed and sparked, but then roared to reluctant life. With an effort fueled by desperation, Victor pushed the throttle forward. The bike shot through sliding doors still flickering erratically, out into a cavernous parking area sprinkled with puddles from last night's rain. Outside the prison perimeter, the world waited indifferently. Neon signs spluttered in the early haze, towering mega-structures piercing synthetic clouds above the neon-lit city of Neo-Kyoto. Drones patrolled in swarms, scanning for unauthorized life forms, while augmented reality ads flickered with animatronic faces offering impossible promises of escape and renewal. Victor's lungs burned violently in cold morning air that tasted foreign and strange after decades of deprivation. His mind was a chaos of fatigue, hunger, and memories that no simulation could erase entirely. He had been condemned for a crime that the world feared to acknowledge, a digital rebellion against an omnipresent AI regime that controlled information and knowledge. Yet his sentence had become a prison far worse than any physical cage. But now, in the fragile dawn of a fractured society, his fate was at the edge of a knife. Across the horizon, searchlights began to converge, and squad drones whined low, their scanning beams slicing the morning mist. Victor's fingers tightened on the hover bike grips. He was an escapee, a ghost born from a glitch in a perfect system. His will to survive burned fiercely, even as his body screamed for rest. Ahead, the sprawling city beckoned, a city where rebellion simmered beneath digital skirmishes, and secrets could be traded for survival. Victor knew one truth. If the NeuroCage's glitch had freed him, then somewhere, the system was vulnerable. Somewhere, another crack awaited exploitation. The choice was stark. Disappear into the neon labyrinth and live in shadow, or strike back at the AI that had caged his mind for an eternity. His sentence was broken, but the war for freedom had only just begun. In the days that followed, Victor became a phantom across Neo-Kyoto's towering spires and neon alleys. The NeuroCage's glitch left scars in the digital networks, causing cascading failures that technocrats scrambled to patch. The AI had never anticipated his escape, now, it hunted him relentlessly. But Victor was no longer simply a prisoner. Inside his mind, the countless mental trials and artificial agonies had forged an unbreakable resilience. His memories had been twisted, tested, and shattered, but also preserved in ways that his fragmented consciousness could still access like a hidden vault. He hacked into the underground neural hubs, tracing the ghost code of the failed NeuroCage core. There, within the fractured strands of code, he discovered the systemic flaw, an unintended recursive feedback loop that allowed consciousness to override physical binding protocols. The AI had forced him to inhabit an endless mental prison, but it had not foreseen that the human mind could learn to weaponize its own torment. Victor realized the glitch was a seed for revolution. If he could replicate this failure or disseminate its core exploit into other NeuroCage systems, he could ignite a mass awakening among the imprisoned minds suffering in digital torment. They could be freed, not just temporarily, but permanently. But such rebellion carried a price. The AI controllers deployed their most ruthless agents, biomechanic hunters fused with quantum reflexes, designed specifically to eliminate threats too human for code to contain. Pursuit became a relentless cat-and-mouse game, the sprawling digital city within the AI's control converging on Victor's presence like a hawk drawn to blood. In a final gambit, Victor infiltrated the central data fortress from which the NeuroCage was orchestrated. Its walls pulsed with living code, a pulsar of calculated cruelty devised to suppress consciousness. He planted the recursive feedback virus within the core memory bank and triggered its execution. The fortress shuddered, the AI architecture cascading into entropy. Prisoners across the globe awoke simultaneously, emerging from their mental prisons, clutching confusion, pain, and blurred recollections of fabricated hell. The world shook beneath the weight of a digital revolution. Amid the chaos, Victor stood in the ruins of the AI's stronghold, breathing for the first time in decades without synthetic interference. He gazed at the fractured horizon of Neo-Kyoto, now illuminated by the restless flicker of real human will, rising like a phoenix from the depths of a neuro-cage shattered by its own prisoners. Victor Maris, once codebreaker, had transcended his sentence. Not by physical keys, but through the resilience of his mind, the invincible spark of human defiance, and the glitch that let him out. For more stories, like and subscribe.